A round of applause for Peter Fenwick, who's going to be your chair this morning.
Right. Hi, good morning. I hope you all slept well. Will you sleep well after today? Because we're going to talk about death. Now, just mentioning that word will, in fact, not working.
Excuse me, I can't hear. I can't hear.
Fortunately, I have Ollie beside me who will make this all work.
Well, can you hear at the back? Okay.
No, they can't.
All right. So, what, Peter, what we'll do then is if you can use the hand mic, if that's all right.
That's perfect.
And just.
What about this? Good. Okay. I only have to mention the word death, and all of you will have existential anxiety. Those of you who are interested in the literature on existential anxiety, look it up, because it does, in fact, alter your behavior in a most remarkable way. Now, we're going to, first of all, I'm just going to introduce you to death. Then Chris is going to talk about after-death communication, etc. And then Betty is going to talk to us about a much more subjective view of what she's experienced. So it's a really nice morning. Okay, so let's begin. I thought it would be best to use this time to show you what our current ideas on how we die. So, yeah, there you are. Starts with premonitions in some people. Does that work? Oh, okay. Premonitions that you know you're going to die, not very common, but common enough to be interesting. And up to 2 years before. Now, those of you who've read the Dalai Lama, you will know that, excuse me, that everybody knows 2 years before they are going to die that they're going to die. And if you look up what he means, he says there's a change in breathing and behavior and so on, but I don't actually know what it means. But at any rate, straight premonitions are fairly clear. Then we get the deathbed visions, which occur in the fortnight before, approximately. And then there is this new reality there, and this is where the new information really is. There, if you can see it. It's very much like the NDE world, and you go into it and out of it and back and forward, and you're familiarizing yourself with the next step. And then, yeah, this guy meets you. I don't really like him. I think that's not the right view. No, it's gone off. Why is that done?
No, you want to go to the right.
Oh, that one. Yeah, take him away. And what about this fella? He's much better, and that's much more what it's like, and you can actually die happy. Did you hear what I said? Yeah, you can die happy. It's really important. And deathbed coincidences, those people who you're emotionally attached to, you go and talk to them. Terminal lucidity, we talked a little bit about that in your conference. And then there are all these things. Now remember, when you die, it's a massive change of consciousness. So you would expect there to be a huge change in everything around you related to you. And indeed, there is. There is clocks stop, animals howl, bells ring, light, a lot of light, either transfiguring the person or in the room, shapes leaving the body, presence is sensed in the room, and then you go on to Professor Christopher Rowe. Who will tell you all about it. Okay, I'm not going to go through this. This is, in fact, done by Stephen Lyrid at the Coma Group, and it's the common elements recurring, the NDEs. Now, I'm going to show you that there is very little difference between the NDE and the actual death experience. Now, this really is the first time that the similarity has been worked up. So, could it be that there is just a chemical cause for this? One could say that we're only having MDE experiences, and that's all. This has been linked to the NDE for many years, and the study shows that NDE experiences are most similar to those of ketamine. Ketamine is a very good drug, and is this released near to death? DMT, which works on a different system, which works on the serotonergic system, is also similar, but it's not as good as ketamine. So they both look as if they work that way. Now, let us just think about that, because otherwise I'm going to get myself into a materialistic trap. And I have no intention of going into that. So the neurochemical models are very far-reaching in determining if NDEs are simply the release of a brain chemical. Okay? And the work done by Stephen in the Coma Group is looking at the way that these two sets of experiences correlate with near-death experience. And it's very high. Ketamine is the best. And they are very context-dependent. Now, do you remember that list I showed you? Well, I've taken out all the NDE ones, which I think, in fact, are not seen in the approaching death or end-of-life experiences. And if you look at that list, it's almost the same. So if you want a good look at death, as we know, have a near-death experience, but don't do it through heart stopping. That's dangerous. It may not just be a near-death experience. There's some interesting things there, like a life review. You get that in actual death. Other things, the void, the tunnel, they're all there in real death experiences or actual death experiences. So I think one way of now thinking about near-death experiences is that they are very similar. They're an extraordinarily good model for real death experiences. So this I've taken from one of Stephen's paper, Death and Psychedelics. So this is now in the literature, so we have to start thinking about it. This could have important implications for the pharmacological induction of NDE-like states for scientific purposes. Okay, that's being done. As well as for therapeutic use in the terminal ill as a means to alleviate death anxiety. New concept, really. So should we be thinking about giving those people in hospices ketamine? We believe that the development of evidence-based treatments for such anxiety is a cornerstone of a more compassionate approach towards the universal experiencing of transiting between life and death. It's a strong statement. It's in the literature, and so maybe in the spiritual hospices of the future, you'll be asked if you'd like to see what's going to happen by taking ketamine. And the similarity between NDEs and the dying, which I've shown you, is a better understanding of both the psychology and neurobiology of the dying by using psychedelics to model it, may have implications for how we view this most inevitable and universal phenomenon. Anybody here not going to die? Oh, well. Then you have to pay extreme attention. potentially promoting a greater familiarity with and healthy acceptance of it. Now, I'm stressing the word healthy because of all the existential anxiety going on in the room between you all. By meditating on death, we paradoxically become conscious of life, and I would agree with that. The Dalai Lama is very strong on this. How extraordinary it is to be here. Awareness of death can jolt us awake to the sensuality of existence. The Dalai Lama says those people who think they are permanent, in other words, those people who reject death, lead to a very skewed society. We can collect things, we're greedy. We can be angry because we can hold grudges indefinitely. We can be very self-centered. So an understanding of death is really important. Beyond death, what happens? And now we're going to come into Chris Rowe, and he's going to tell us exactly what happens after this and after death, and how it goes on. Just to sum up, I think that our views of death are now that you go into a non-dual state just before you die. Non-dual means that you're in fact going into a cosmic state, and the evidence for that is getting stronger and stronger. So you can now say death is an expansion. Try it out at the cocktail party and say, did you know, death is an expansion. They won't actually agree. So let me end then, and I'll ask Chris if he will come up.